Part 2, The Muppet Show and Fame. During his returning work on Sesame Street, Kermit met a variety of other puppets trying to break into show business, similar to Ralph. This included Fozzie Bear, who he met in the comedy club, and of course Miss Piggy, who he met at a beauty pageant. Kermit and Jim worked with his new friends alongside his appearances on Sesame Street to create the first real instances of the Muppets. This included the 1974 special, The Muppet Valentine Show, and the 1975 special, The Muppets Show Sex and Violence. What? They also produced some weird short films for business meetings and training sessions. But all of this work led up to The Muppet Show, beginning in 1976, propelling Kermit and his cast members to a level of extreme stardom, frequently appearing with celebrities and featuring on talk shows. This time also saw the Muppets' relationship solidify through a period of closely working together, experimenting with their identities, and developing their talents. It seemed like a happy time, but it was also this weird bridge between real life and their fictional personas. This was the first work of the Muppets that hints at a romantic relationship between Piggy and Kermit, but their true intentions were masked by the program's show business aesthetic. On one hand, they had the chemistry of the leading actors of a classic Hollywood screwball comedy, performing musical numbers and dance sequences together.
You know what?
What?
You're lovely.
And so what?
I'm lovely.
But oh, what you do to me.
But on the other hand, their relationship seems to be a lot more harsher and less glamorous.
There was a cover story about us being secretly married.
It's only a slight exaggeration.
That's a bald-faced lie, Piggy. I will not stand around while you do dumb things like that, Piggy. You have done that to me too many times, Piggy. I will not stand for it. I will not stand for it.
What are you going to do?
I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Piggy. I'm going to fire you. Piggy, you are fired. You are fired. Piggy, you are fired. Fired.
But this was a television show, and these were performances. This isn't how things really were, right? The late 70s was the start of Kermit and Piggy's future of extremely frequent talk show appearances. In 1978, they appeared on BBC's Parkinson, which goes into their off-screen relationship. Although Kermit denies it, his adamance is suspicious. Miss Piggy then proceeds to flirt with Parkinson, making Kermit visually uncomfortable. Although this may seem as if it's expanding on the comedy of the show and continuing their performances, their appearance on The Tonight Show in 1979 seems much more serious. Kermit had risen to a much more legitimate personality than his infrequent talk shows of the past, and he was able to guest host the show, interviewing figures like Vincent Price. Miss Piggy announces their engagement, and Kermit denies that they're together.
Kermit and moi am engaged.
What? Wait a minute. Wait a second. No, we are not. Hey, hold, guys. No, we are not engaged. She just made that up.
This is a gag that had been running for 3 years now, and although it still got the laughs, it seemed that Miss Piggy was not joking. These are people who have been working together closely for several years now. They're going through complicated feelings of conflicting personal and professional interest. They have history, and they have a future, which we're about to see unfold. Propelled by the success of the opening years of The Muppet Show, in 1979, Kermit and the gang were solidified as pop culture icons when they released their first feature film. You know what? I'm just gonna put a pin in this for now and save it for later. All you need to know is that it was a big deal. Kermit had risen from growing up in a swamp to the top of the show business ladder, and this film proved it. With their appearances amplified on a greater stage, the tension between Kermit and Piggy became even more apparent. Their appearance at the 1979 Emmys saw them publicly bickering.
Piggy.
Don't you pity me? I just want you to know how embarrassed I am.
Listen,
I'm
Piggy,
a movie star.
Yes, but they just invited us out here to read the rules now. Come on now.
Cheap and toppish.
But also saw some extreme highlights, like Kermit performing the Rainbow Connection at the 1980 Oscars. It seemed like Kermit was on top of the world, and Miss Piggy only wanted to be at his side.
Oh, hi, Piggy.
I tried to save you a seat, but somebody took it.
In 1981, alongside the release of The Great Muppet Caper, Miss Piggy released a book titled Miss Piggy's Guide to Life, featuring a bizarrely out-of-place chapter on her depression. This was a fitting footnote for the following eras of Muppetry. The Muppets had done everything that they had set out to do. It seemed for now that they were enjoying life at the top. Perhaps it was Jim Henson's involvement in other major projects, such as The Dark Crystal in 1982, that caused a drought of high-quality Muppet media. This period saw a lot less creative outings and an abundance of television appearances and interviews. And they all went exactly the same.
It's my fault. It's my
My love, my desperate love is the star.
Why do I get all this stuff about me being married to Miss Piggy?
Are you thinking of marrying Miss Piggy?
There's no relationship except what you see on television.
After this intense period of rejection, it's safe to say that it really got to Miss Piggy, so in 1984 she devised a plan that would unite Kermit and her forever. The Muppets Take Manhattan is a fan favourite film that builds off all of the previous Muppet Show source material. In this fashion, the film naturally ends with a wedding between Kermit and Piggy. Now just to be clear, these are the characters Kermit and Piggy, not the real people. In the world of the film, they're romantic leads in love with one another, but in reality it's far more complicated, as evidenced by the hours of discussion on talk shows. What Miss Piggy does next is an astonishing transcendence of reality and fiction. As Kermit and Miss Piggy approach each other at the altar, an unfamiliar face stands before them. Kermit, nervous and confused, stares at Miss Piggy and utters,
I thought Gonzo was gonna play the minister.
Miss Piggy, overjoyed and overwhelmed, her plan had reached this point, just laughs. A laugh of anxious celebration, a laugh in place of words that would not do justice. Kermit, surrounded by loved ones, overtaken by the glow of show business. Kermit sees no choice but to follow the script. After all, he is an actor. This is just a movie. He swallows his fears and says,
I do.
hard cut to credits, she did it, movie over, the frog is in the bag. After all of these years, she finally got him. From now on, Piggy and Kermit are officially married, in the universe and in real life. Unfortunately, it's not a time for celebration.
What better way could anything end? Hand in hand with a friend.
This is something that would cause great stress for Kermit and Piggy. Jim Henson continued to work outside of the Muppets, working on Labyrinth, released in 1986. In 1990, the tension between Piggy and Kermit reached breaking point. Miss Piggy had accidentally stood in cement, trapping herself whilst Kermit abandoned her. This event was covered in a few very awkward TV appearances. Their patience for each other had become extremely thin.
Try not to get into this stuff right now while we're...
Piggy and Kermit were so caught up in arguing that it would have to take something catastrophic to take them out of it.
Piggy?
Are you okay?
Piggy?
Wow, that got darker than I thought it would, but it'll be alright in the end, won't it? You can subscribe to make sure you know when the next episodes are out, and follow me on Twitter for even more updates. Thank you for watching, I'll see you next time.
Saying goodbye, why is it sad? Makes us remember the good times we've had.